Yes, guys, welcome back to more GBFC. Aston Villa 3, Paris Saint-Germain 2. If you're an Aston Villa fan right now, I would be very proud of what you have seen from your team at Villa Park. It was a spectacle. It was a magnificent night of football. The tifos before the game, massive shout out to Aston Villa fans, because what they did to the best team in Europe right now needs to be looked at. Today we're going to go through how I believe Aston Villa have shown here that there's a big difference between being beaten and losing emotionally. The game was fueled at Villa Park. The fans were up for it. Everybody was up for it. And Unai Emery set his team out with a very clear tactical instruction to nullify the PSG midfield and to get in behind them, to pin the defenders, and it worked. And as much as there was a point in this game where Aston Villa are 5-1 down on aggregate, it didn't matter because Aston Villa went out there with a game plan and technically they executed it almost to perfection. You're always going to concede chances if you're trying to play narrow against a team like PSG because they've got wingers that can hurt you. And it was different guys today. It was Bradley Barcola on the left wing who likes to hug that touchline position. And as you can see, he absolutely did that, but he was pretty much nullified for the 58 minutes that he was out there on the field. Kvaratskhelia, as we know, he likes to operate on both sides of the pitch. He's both-footed, and Ousmane Dembele got himself an assist. But what Aston Villa did so well is suffocate the Paris Saint-Germain midfield. If you take a look at the average positions from the match in the Parc des Princes a week ago, there was so many moments where PSG have just got full dominance of the middle of the park. Aston Villa were pinned into their own defence, whereas in this game, you look at the average positions for Villa, significantly further up the field. They were pushing, and that was the game plan from Unai Emery. The game plan was, we're going to go super narrow. Yes, we're going to surrender opportunities as a result of that, but that is how, in the long run, we can use our aggressive attacking players to hurt them. And that is exactly what they did. And look, I want to talk today about emotion, because that's the kind of football fan I am. I'm a Chelsea fan, and obviously there's ups and downs, there's roller coasters, but what I think is so important for Aston Villa, and we're going to go through this at the end of the video, is how you have gone out here. Because I know when you wake up the day after being knocked out the Champions League, especially when it technically is so close, you don't want to hear some Chelsea fan on YouTube saying it's going to be all right. But I just want to get these fixtures up quickly on the screen now, because this is what Aston Villa are playing for. An FA Cup semi-final, 2 finals in themselves in the race for the top 4. We'll go into that a little bit later on. But if I'm being honest, let's take a close-up look at this team here. 4-2-3-1. Martinez in goal. Luca Dean, Pau Torres, who I actually thought was good, maybe at fault. And again, the goal that PSG score early on, I think it's like they're architects of their own downfall, Aston Villa, because Emi Martinez is such a good goalkeeper that Pau Torres just kind of expects him to come out and claim it. And then when he doesn't, you've got Hakimi racing in on you, he's going to score. And I think at that point of the game, it's like, shit. Aston Villa 4-1 down, and then it becomes 5 on aggregate when Nuno Mendes scores in the 27th minute. What a player he is, by the way. As much as I'm going to talk about Aston Villa predominantly today, they've got some incredible players in this PSG team. It's 5-1 on aggregate, 2-0 on the night. What do you expect a team to do when they need to score 4 goals? A lot of teams that don't have the self-belief and don't have a consistent idea in their heads about what they're supposed to do would just look around and be like, well, we're deflated here. We had all of that atmosphere. We had the tifos. We've heard the Champions League music. After listening to the Europa League music, by the way, that was hilarious. Rashford looked right at home. They decided, you know what? We're going to stick to exactly what we were told to do. And that is why Unai Emery deserves so much credit, because he's coming up against a PSG team that right now, this for me is the best team in Europe right now. We saw Barcelona lose 3-1 in Dortmund with a Guirassy hat-trick last night as well. But these players have all been magnificent all season. And Donnarumma, he gets a 6.9 rating, but this is why you can't ever take these ratings as gospels, because the 5 saves that he makes, particularly in that second half, it's match winning, and it's the second time he's done it in England to send PSG through, beaten Liverpool, and they've beaten Aston Villa. But let's talk about the Aston Villa comeback for a second, because the first goal, Yuri Tielemans, it's a deflected goal. The second one, John McGinn. This man was like, you know what? I'm believing in this atmosphere here. I'm feeling the emotion inside of this stadium, and I'm going to go on a solo run, and the goal that he scores is magnificent. And unfortunately, for Villa fans and John McGinn, this game will be remembered that PSG went through. They might even win the whole thing. I think they will. But John McGinn's goal is absolutely spectacular. When Ezri Konsa then scores 2 minutes later, this is what I'm saying about the difference between being beaten and losing emotionally. Because if you're beaten and you're 5-1 down against the team performing best in Europe right now, and you're not really, if you look at the momentum here, Aston Villa weren't having much in that first half. But they've gone out there at the beginning of that second half, and the stadium was absolutely electric. And I wasn't there, but you can hear it through the television. And the belief when it becomes 3-2 is just something else. Villa Park was absolutely rocking, and they had chances. And I think that's what we got to talk about here, because Marco Asensio comes on for John McGinn. And I think that was the right decision, because I think McGinn got them to even be in the position where the tie is really competitive after 3 goals in a row. But for me, the big mistake that Emery made, and the only mistake I think he makes here, is taking off Marcus Rashford. If you look at these average positions, Rashford was playing like a striker, but still, the third goal that they score, he's got those moments again where he's drifting out wide, which is what we know Rashford likes to do. And he's brought Ollie Watkins on, and I just feel as though Rashford, the way that he was playing, he forced an incredible save as well out of Donnarumma in the game. I just think Rashford being on the pitch would have benefited Aston Villa when we're looking at these last few minutes here, when you kind of want this to be the opposite. Villa are the ones that need a goal, but PSG are the ones ending strong. And from the moment Rashford comes off, Aston Villa don't really have any more moments. But I want to say, Donnarumma, Gianluigi Donnarumma, what a goalkeeper this man's proven out to be. Difficult time at the start of his life at Paris Saint-Germain, but I think over the course of the 2 legs, he's actually won this for them. Yes, there's brilliance here all over the park, but if you're Arsenal, if Arsenal do win tonight, or if you're Real Madrid, I think you've got to implement something similar to what Unai Emery has done here. Play narrow, get those 3 defenders, or these 2, Marquinhos and Pacho, couldn't play. They couldn't really get the ball out because they always had a 3v3 or a 4v3 with those Aston Villa attackers. I thought it was genius from Emery. They've won the game, but like I've been saying all video, it's not a loss that I think it's going to hurt today. It really is. But Aston Villa's Champions League run, particularly at Villa Park, has been sensational. So I think Aston Villa should be really proud. And because of Unai Emery, I think you've always got a chance in the cup competitions, which is why winning this game the way that they did but losing the tie is going to bode so well going into these 3 humongous games for Aston Villa. Because now that you've got a taste of being in the Champions League, now that you know what the sound of the anthem through your speakers feels like, you want that again. And if you look here, Aston Villa, they're 7th in the league table. But despite losing that game, momentum is fully on Aston Villa's side. And by the way, PSG had their match called off on the weekend just gone. Villa had to go away at Southampton and play, and they won 3-0. But Newcastle at home, like, that is just beyond massive, isn't it, this weekend? Then Man City away. I back Aston Villa there, I do. And then Crystal Palace in the FA Cup semi-finals. Aston Villa, for me now, having watched them play against probably the best team in Europe, maybe the world right now, I think Aston Villa are the favourites for the FA Cup. Quarter-finalists in the Champions League, you win an FA Cup, and I don't see any reason why Villa can't push here for a Champions League place. And as a Chelsea fan, I'm worried about that because Newcastle are up for it. We can see that. Aston Villa, I think they can only really be positive. I think you've got the big clubs, they get back up and they go again. And I think Aston Villa will do that because I think they've got that manager that will make sure that what they remember is that they beat PSG. They didn't roll over. They literally were 2-0 down, 5-1 on aggregate. And if it wasn't for a magnificent PSG goalkeeper, I think we're talking about a famous win here for Aston Villa. And it might not go down in history as a famous win because they've lost the tie. But all in all, so many positives. So many positives. In the other match that was on, Barcelona were beaten 3-1 at Borussia Dortmund. It was a Guirassy hat-trick, but it wasn't enough. So Barcelona and PSG progress into the Champions League semi-finals. What are we going to see tonight? I can't wait for this one. Real Madrid, Arsenal. Maybe after 2 almost comebacks, maybe tonight is the night of the comeback. Your thoughts in the comments if you're a Villa fan. Let me know how you feel, but I would be very proud of what you'd seen from your team. Really, really well done.